Let's start with priority one. Priority one actually changes a lot lately with new updates, right? So here's what's interesting. We just had the Gemini 3 launch, right? I haven't even looked into it, but I still just yesterday finally got access to the Gmail flows. And it took me 4 days for me to get that little icon to appear, and even to have flows, workflow.googleworkspace.com, whatever the site was, wouldn't even appear in my browser. And I had to turn things on. I had to wait 3 days, and then finally it appeared. So I don't understand that. But anyway, my priority is lead gen for real estate and home buying and selling. Now that's what I do right now for immediately, but raising capital and broad syndication for real estate investing, for deal flow, and then for automotive marketing, I want to get in and change that industry, because driving traffic into the automotive dealership space, I've been in that space for 25 years. That's antiquated, broken, and I'm schooled in prompt engineering, but I want to put it all together in workflows. And finally, with investor relations, it's the same thing in a different space. But lead gen, workflows, newsletters, what I'm working on, I want to get curated news. I want to take it, convert it using Make, N8N, or alike, to run it through a process where the news is curated in real time. It's put into my voice, reconstituted or reconfigured, however you want to put it, into my voice and my spin, and then it goes into a newsletter format, and then it automatically delivers on a regular cadence. And some of that will be on 3 regular campaigns that I have named, but then the other launch will be for sudden updates, unexpected news announcements, and driving in call to action on the immediate type of a thing. So newsletter, that's the big thing. The other thing is to put all of my, and I just got Go high level. So that's been a bear to learn. I'm still anyway, it's got to all work together. I'm debating on whether I should be learning N8N or even Make right now, because I understand you can verbally vibe code with Make. That's a new feature they got. I don't know. I'm just here to try to steer myself. Maybe people have frameworks that are built and I can do templates and work on those. Building from scratch, I don't know. So I'm just here to try to figure this out. Cool. That's not too much information.
No, we need too much information. This is a world dominated by information. So you brought up a bunch of different topics. This will be a review for some of the people who've been on the call before, but then we have some other new folks on here. So a few different things. So one, if you're trying to do lead generation, right? So part of lead generation, at least I feel like this is, you can do outreach, say like an email outreach campaign. And then in your email outreach campaign, you're like, hey, I have a service or I have a product, buy it from me, right? And you're only going to get so much retention from that, or conversion from that. I don't know if you're familiar with Gamma or the other one, where you can generate like brochures and reports. We did a coaching call on that where I was showing people how to basically just use ChatGPT to generate a bunch of content for you. Take that, put that into Gamma, and now you have your 2025 or 2026 real estate, personal real estate reports that you can be sending out to people, having them, submit their email addresses so that they can access that free report, right? And so I think that, it's not just about using the automation to send out 10,000 emails, as much as also using AI to enhance, what you're offering people in those emails, right? And then the re-engagement campaigns and things like that. You're, bringing up N8N and Make and vibe coding. So I have found, I wonder if N8N does make as much sense with the prevalence of vibe coding. In my Tuesday calls, I typically do vibe coding, and then on the Thursday calls, we do N8N. And I feel like that, with vibe coding and with like what you're doing in N8N typically, because the LLMs know Python better than they know the JSON structure of N8N templates. There are definitely instances, maybe not all the time, where if you know what you're doing, you can vibe code up solutions faster with Python than you can with N8N. But
Okay.
if you are still interested in doing N8N, and again, like it also might be per person, right? Like I think that I don't need necessarily the visual node-based system of N8N. I think that may work better for other people. And then for either one of them, and you probably know this from doing vibe coding, you're not going to get a great solution right off the bat. However, and part of the reason why I bring that up is so N8N also has essentially, I don't know if you'd call it a vibe coding solution, but it has an AI builder solution. And we're going to use that today in our N8N workflows. And so I'll be demonstrating that. And that does, the good thing about that is that like theoretically, and if you are a little bit more versed in N8N and you get used to it, and I think if that's become your platform of choice, then what it'll do is it'll set up an entire workflow for you, and it'll be basically 80 to 90% there. There will definitely be issues with it, and then you're going to have to troubleshoot those issues. It does also have an AI guide to guide you through that, and then I think there are other things you can do to sort of make that go a little bit smoother. But I think with all these solutions, having AI help you is really the right way to go. Like and I think that it does. At times there are people who are, and some of us are doing that, and it's really not like an all or nothing. You're either black or white here. We're all probably gray in this. We are probably working with technology at times that we don't fully understand, right? Or they're not fully vetting that code or not really understanding everything we're doing. But that's also true a lot of times of how developers were doing it anyway, where you maybe did not understand every line of code. Potentially you're doing a little copy pasta where you were finding a working notebook of it online and then just adapting it for your use case. And not studying every aspect of it. And so I do think that like both vibe coding and N8N pipelines, with the help of AI, we are going to probably have too often where people are building things and they don't totally understand them. Then at the same time, how much do you really need to understand? But the big thing that I always bring up are my semi-famous phrase. So we all have been given keys to Ferraris, and it's just none of us know how to drive, right? So I think, and probably it's like we don't know where to drive and we don't know where to go either. We don't really have a destination at times, and so I think that spending some time and learning how to drive and learning where you want to go is going to be more important. Because now again, like we all have Ferraris, right? We all can just like go 0 to 60, in an instant. But should you maybe take some time to, and you don't even need to necessarily just learn this, by reading a book or something like you used to. You can work with the AI assistants to basically teach you a little bit more about how you're supposed to do this. When I show people how to do vibe coding, part of it is like starting it right and, giving the AI good instructions to begin with, asking it to, create, code that follows best practices and is lean and dry and modular, asking it to put together a folder structure for you and things like that. And then also having it explain some of its thinking to you as to why it's doing what it's doing or challenging what it's asking for. And then the same thing, maybe not to the same degree, but also with N8N when you're building things, is to really understand a little bit more about how it's working and why, and do those choices make sense. Otherwise, as errors pop up and you don't have any error handling or something like that, then it becomes a lot more difficult. But yeah, we are entering into a brand new technological revolution, and most people, right? It's interesting, like everybody on this call knows what vibe coding is. At least they somewhat understand it since we've said it like 20 times since the start of the coaching call. But I think that probably most people have no idea what that is. If you were to say vibe coding to them to like maybe your aunt or one of your friends from high school. They'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like, what is a vibe code? And so I think we're all still early, and this is a great time for us to be learning these things. But then also, and I think this is one of the good things about doing the coaching calls, is if you're struggling, it's not just you, right? Even though we all have AI to help us, the struggle is real. It's not always going to work right. And part of it, especially if it's, say, your first vibe coding project or it's your first end-to-end pipeline. And this was true. So like when I was working in production, like the first script that somebody wrote, right? Like if you wrote your first feature film script and you loved it so much and you thought it was great, 99.9% of the time, you're supposed to just throw that in the garbage and then move on to your next script, right? And it is somewhat similar with vibe coding and end-to-end pipelines, where it's like, yeah, the first one you build, there's a great chance that it's like, it's not actually useful, or it's, you thought it was going to be a good idea and you thought that's what you were going to want, and then as you got through it, you're like, no, this actually isn't all that useful to me. And that'll happen. Or you realize that, yeah, functionally it kind of works, but then I don't know how to deploy it, or like it's not actually user friendly or whatever. And that's fine. We are, if your first one doesn't work perfectly, or is something you might need to just shelve and then move on to or maybe you're halfway through it and you realize, this isn't really what I'm interested in. Actually, I want to build this other thing, and that's going to help me out more. I think we all are going to be there. I will suggest try not to keep doing that too often, right? One of the things that I bring up is that I think it's a good idea to try to do the 80-20 or the 90-10 rule, where you should have like one project that is your primary focus, or you should have like one set of like models or tools that you're using. And it's like, okay, like stay focused on those.
Yeah.
And then another 10 to 20% of the time, try out some new things. Like you were bringing up, there's going to be the new Gemini 3, right? And it's like, well, like if you are used to using Anthropic, or you're used to using something else, like should you just switch over to Gemini 3 and start using that for whatever it does? It's like, no, I wouldn't say that. Like I would say stick with your bread and butter, but maybe, for a couple of hours, just give it a cruise, see how it works, stay up to date with, these new models, these new things. Or if you have an idea and like, I really kind of like this idea, it's new, but I'm working on something else, spend a little bit of time on it, but try not to just keep shelving your primary project you're working on. Otherwise, you don't get very far. Maisha, do you have a question? I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah. So as a visual person, learning a little bit of analytical, sound like vibe coding is the same as your brand persona and tone. And I'm just using this as a way for my coding for N8N, correct?
Okay. So vibe coding, and none of this stuff probably has like real definitions, because it's just something that somebody made up. Essentially, vibe coding is having AI write typically Python code for you. However, it can also be like HTML code or whatever. And I think that the vibe coding part, like how do I describe like why it's called vibe coding? Essentially, it's because you don't actually need to do the coding anymore yourself. You just have AI code up something for you. So like on Tuesday, that's what we were doing. And I can show you examples of it, but essentially that's where you have Claude or GPT or whoever generate code files for you, and then you use those and run you, like how most applications are built. Like most applications are built on coded files. And so before, everyone used to just do it by hand, but now you can have AI do it. N8N is separate. N8N is its own platform. And I think maybe we've been mixing up the word vibe coding a bit, but in that same sort of way, you no longer really need to build N8N workflows. You'll see that today. You can just ask AI to build a workflow for you. And so in that way, I guess you're still vibe coding an N8N workflow, but there is less actual coding that you're doing, since N8N is supposed to be a visual, code-based system. Hopefully that makes some amount of sense, but typically when people say that they're vibe coding, a lot of times they are vibe coding Python code or HTML code or JavaScript or something like that. And then N8N is a node-based, and we'll see that soon, workflow system. And both of them can have AI help you. Sharima, I know I'm probably not saying your name right, but I see you have your hand up as well.
You can call me Rama. That's enough.
Rama, there we go.
Like Sri Rama is hard for you guys.
Sharima, okay, that makes more sense.
So basically, I had a doubt. Have you connected like N8N MCP is there, right? N8N MCP with Claude Desktop. Have you tried that?
What is this? I have at one point done. Yes, I have connected it before.
Do you have any like resources for it? Because I was trying in my Fedora and it was not functioning well. So I wanted to know, like, is there any?
Yeah. I think I found the same thing. MCP is not very good yet. Okay, so for everybody else, MCP. So MCP is Model Context Protocol. Is one of, so like last year, everything was all about RAG, retrieval augmented generation. And then at the beginning of this year, and still now, it's all about agents. Agents. And then MCP, I guess, is a form of agentic systems, right? Where now what you can do with MCP is connect a LLM essentially to one of the software, right? So like as Rama is saying, you can connect an LLM right to the N8N platform, or you could connect it to QuickBooks. You can connect it to editing software. You can connect it to your IDE, basically your coding application, and have it write code for you right in your coding platform. The problem is they say that MCP is the #1 technology where there's more developers than there's users. And every time I have tried something MCP, I don't know what it is. The technology doesn't seem to be there. As you're saying, like, you don't get very good results. Anything I have connected to it and I have built MCP things for, it is just, I think, more. And again, like building agentic systems is difficult as it is. I think that there is something about connecting MCP, and part of it also is probably the prompting that we're doing for these MCP servers. And because it is this new technology that just kind of got thrown out there and open sourced, and everyone's like, MCP, because the concept is so great, right? It's like, oh, you just connect an LLM to any one of your software platforms and it'll just do all your work for you. And then the reality is that it does the worst work ever for you. And I have not had good results. And then a lot of times, like, that's one of the, like, I've abandoned. I was really heavy into MCP earlier this year, and then just got to a point where it's like, no, it's just easier for me to ask, Claude to do whatever I want and then do it myself with its instructions, or copy and paste whatever it told me to do, or whatever, than actually running MCP. So I think we're a bit of a ways away from MCP being good. We did do a coaching call, I'm almost sure about this, where I think it was like I did an MCP coaching call, and one was we connected the there's like a GitHub repo, right, for like a popular MCP for N8N, and it's pretty easy to install. From what I remember, it's like a few lines, and you just set it up, and then boom, you have this MCP for N8N. And then we also made our own very simple N8N MCP on that same call. I think so. At least I was working on my own simple N8N MCP, and it's not. I don't know. It's not as good. I would suggest, again, like, if you should do the paid version of N8N. I don't think you can actually stay on the free trial for too long. If you're on the updated paid version, they have their own AI builder, which we're going to use today. I think that's better than having Claude or whoever vibe code out a JSON for you to import in there, or to use an MCP, as far as I can tell. So we will do that today. That is my suggestion instead of trying to get the MCP.
Got it. Actually, I have self-hosted the Reddit and I'm not using the paid version. So I'll look for the subscription then. Thank you for the advice.
Yep. Russell, what's up?
Okay, just a quick question. There's a lot of good information. Thanks for steering in the wisdom of it all. One of the things that I find is that I can get 90% done, 98% done. Percent is 100% away from being executed. So therefore, and you flip to another process, you try something different, hours go by, no production, right? My question is in this environment, I'm sure I'm not the only person that runs into these things. What's a good way to connect with other people who may be having or sharing it with someone like you or someone else in the group? Because I have flipped from a few different processes back and forth, and then the new technology comes. Oh, let's go there. New technology. Oh, let's go there. Right. You pointed it all out. I'm sure I don't even need to reiterate. Now we're at the point where in this newsletter thing, I've got deadlines. I want to get this thing done, and I want to see this program all the way through. So I'm going to follow your suggestion and what you're saying, stick with one thing. But I also want to make sure that, is there a place where I can go if I get stuck, I can get someone else to chime in like yourself. Now, at times I'm willing to pay for that service. Sometimes I just want to talk about what's going on, but I would leave it up to a professional like you to guide me.
So there's a few different things. So on Mondays is Q&A day. And so at the same time, 8 a.m. or well, I don't know, it's 8 a.m. for you, right? If you're in Orange County. So am I. I'm not in Orange County, but I'm in Los Angeles. Mondays are Q&A day. I'll tell you, Q&A days are, we're struggling a bit because people aren't bringing in enough questions. And so if you, no. Like I would prefer if people were just like, hey,
Me
check
too.
this out. I'm having issues with this. Now, I'm not saying I can actually absolutely troubleshoot your problems right there.
Sure.
We can get the ball rolling. We can start to figure some stuff out. We can start to, and then maybe again, like somebody on the call can help out. There is a variety of expertise on these calls, and I know some of the folks on here can potentially help out and consult, especially if we're taking it a little bit farther. I do think that there is. I'm not on there a lot, but I know that there are. We do have like community and like I think that you can post things within here and like ask people for help. And then also I know that Julian's team does put together automations for people. And so that's another option. So there are options in here. So again, like Q&A is totally free. If you want to come in, and I need people to ask questions and to bring problems. And usually I'm forcing, I think maybe Hector just had a bunch of questions on Monday we just started to run through because nobody else would ask them. And yeah, if you have that, we can potentially troubleshoot some problems there. Julian's team can do things for you. And then within the community, there are people. And then also, as I said, like in that Q&A, if there might be other folks who are just like, hey, yeah, I can show you what to do. Let's talk offline. So that is all available.
Cool, thanks. I'm your Huckleberry. I'll be there for sure. So I'm going to say this also. My plans are pretty ambitious, and a lot of them contain some prompt engineering, what we would call containers and variables, in a very specific way to handle unstructured data as well as prompting, so that getting the brand voice distributed in the right way, connecting like a nano banana image, and then the whole distribution. But in marketing, you need to be at least this much better. You don't have to be the best. You just got to be this much the algorithm to turn in your favor. But the newsletter ambition is the one thing that will drive this thing. So I'll bring the questions for you and a process. I'd love to see it, and then I'll explore other things. I really appreciate it.
And then this was something that you, when you were bringing up before about, like when you were talking about this in the right tone and the right voice. So, and I'm wondering if there is a good way to do this, because and maybe what you need to do.
Hector, can you pause it's conflicting with everybody else's talking.
Let's all mute. Let's all mute while he's talking. That's a courteous thing to do. I'll do it myself. Hang on.
You may want to fine tune an LLM, which sounds a little bit, what would I say, like ambitious, but it's actually like, again, like you can have GPT or Claude or whoever walk you through doing it, because you have a RAG system, right, where it can take unstructured data and utilize that when it's giving you a response. But that's really for injecting information. It's not really for adjusting tone and vibe and voice and things like that. So you can prompt it to use a tone and a vibe and a voice, but if it's not doing what you want through prompting, really it is fine-tuning it to what you're looking to do. And if you get that process up and going, it's a little bit, so like if you're using GPT, you can fine-tune GPT. You can also fine-tune open source models. I'm sure I've never done it with Claude, but I've done it with GPT. It's a little bit clunky and confusing at first, right, with any of this technology stuff. But once you get your fine-tuning system set up, then doing it is simple. And the other thing that you want to do is like, you need to have like maybe like your old newsletters or whatever you're using to use it to fine tune with. You are also going to want to feed that through. I guess GPT-5 is a big context window now, but like, let's say you had 100 pages of your writing and you're like, here is the writing I want to use to fine tune with. I would, and maybe you can set this up through an automation or something, although it'll take you like half an hour to do it. So like the amount of time to do the automation might be a lot unless you're fine tuning a lot. But then basically you have it structure your raw writing material for a fine-tuning data set, and you just feed it like 5 pages at a time and just be like, here, turn this into the fine-tuning data set, turn this into and then you just tell it to do it 20 times. You're doing it once, it's not a big deal. You're gonna end up doing it a bunch of times and this is your business, then you would build an automation for it. But then now you have this fine-tuning data set, you use that, and then that should be better than doing something like RAG. And then again, this is only if using prompt engineering techniques are not effective enough.
Yeah, that was awesome. I appreciate every bit of that. One other quick one on, I've been trying to do a direct API connection with ChatGPT into my Google Drive. Now, we all know about the connectors, right? And the connectors are cool. I can't read, write, and do everything that it's limited. And so I'm trying to do a direct API connection, and I'll be dipped in dirty dog doo-doo if between Claude and Chat, I can't get it. It's learning how to do it. It doesn't know how to connect itself.
Okay, so what I would say is like
direct API. Yeah.
There has to be a way to, so like in N8N, you can do it for sure.
Well, we
100%
know
you can do it in N8N, but that also makes me realize, because we do it in N8N, because like you can connect your Google Sheets to an N8N workflow, no problem. And I know you can connect Google Drive to it, and Google Docs and things like that. And so I will tell you, if N8N can do it, they're not special. So like there has to be a way for you to have a Python code that connects to your Google Drive. Now the thing is that you may need to go through Google Platform or Google Cloud Console, which is not as much fun. But again, you can get explanation.
I'm in there doing app script sheets, and following along that way. So So
I do think that there is a way to do it if you want, and that's a good one for like a Monday call. Is like, hey, let's mess around and try to like vibe code out a solution to connect Google Drive to OpenAI and have a system that will do that. Perfect.
Yeah. Thanks. Perfect.
Well, Hector, you had your hand up, and your background noise is a little bit wild. What's up, Hector?
Sorry, yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much. I love everything Russell said. I think we can all relate to all that. And I was just wondering, this whole custom ChatGPT thing and the Google Gems, I really love that concept. It seems to be a similar pattern across other platforms where you basically stick, big containers, stick the information, and then there you go, big LLMs, right? But this is a tiny one, the Gems and the Chat GPTs. But as I'm going through the training on your process at week 1, I'm coming to basic questions that a newbie like me, because I've never dealt with all this stuff. So I'm like asking basic questions like, oh my God, this is so basic, I know, but I have a question. And then I hear Russell, right? And I'm sure you guys have these patterns across the board in the agency here, in the school here. And I just wondered, can't you guys get a specialized custom ChatGPT just to deal with the patterns and the issues that come, week after week, the same issues? You put it in here somewhere available, and they're going to be the same questions over and over that'll be answered. You guys, it'll be like a plus for you guys, your agency. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
So what you're saying is we should have our own custom AI that can answer your questions for you.
Yeah, but specifically for the patterns of questions that come up week after week. They could be the same questions for everybody. And if you're going to plan to grow, you're going to have the same question. That'll save a lot of irritation because if it's going to make sense.
So I know that they used to, for sure. I don't know if it just hasn't come up enough. They would pay attention to these call recordings, and when people would suggest things, then like the next week or two, you would see these suggestions come into play. So I can throw that out to Julian and be like, hey, somebody was suggesting we should have our own AI Profit Boardroom AI that they can ask questions to, and it might not be that big of a deal. I don't know. So I don't know if you do a custom GPT for it, like through the ChatGPT platform. I do think maybe we could come up with a Notebook LM solution. So if you're not familiar with that, that's an easy way where we can just grab a bunch of unstructured material, throw it in there, and then it would be able to answer questions. I would just have to figure, I don't know about like the access to it and how we would set it up, but that might be a fun little project for us to get going so that we have that AI solution for people. And again, like we're an AI company, we'll be AI forward.
Yeah. You mentioned Notebook. Oh my God, I make this just to give you an idea of some of the people that may not be familiar. I'm still learning, but I made for my friend. She loves watching these crime documentary series on TV. Yeah, I made a one just for that. I went on Google, got all the YouTube links about forensic psychology and all that stuff. Put it all together. Make that I got a summary out of that notebook to stick into the instructions of the custom ChatGPT. In this case, Gemini Gems. But yeah, now she's got. It has some humor, some satire, and it's just a nice, entertaining piece. So she can ask a question. It'll bring up psychology behind the crime, the theology behind it, the right thinking set. It's really interesting that I make that. So yeah, I think it is possible. I think it'll be fun.
Awesome. And then if you can, make sure to put yourself on, because you do have some background noise that gets a little distracting.
Sorry.
No, you're good. We all do it every once in a while. Maisha, did you have any questions, or were you just asking for Hector to mute for background noise reasons? Okay. Oh.
No, actually, I was as I was listening to Russell, one of your issues, if I'm hearing you right, you're trying to have consistency with your brand tone and persona. So that's a part of my ecosystem that I have created. So I've created what you're trying to get to with the ecosystem, where I will create a consistent brand tone and persona, because a lot of people don't understand that's how you get the consistency with your GPT bot, is that you have to first set the brand tone, who your audience is, your pain points and stuff. So I have that. My issue is where we're trying to connect my chat to run. So I'm trying to use NAN as my brain, right? Because my ecosystem is my nervous system, is the way it's kind of breaking down to me. And then I was going to use GHL as my, as they call it, the city. I'm just giving you my plain language terms for me to help me visualize it. So GHL is going to pretty much be my front face. And then I wanted to trick, so then it will send a trigger once the customer, either depends on which tier. So I'm kind of having it set up to where my bot is going to dictate whether or not they're going to be able to work with me with the one-on-one, or I'm going to send them through my tier 1 where they'll do it themselves. And I do have my bot that will help them create their brand tone and their brand persona, and then work them through their content and everything else, so they can then structure a different framework of completing different prompts for the content and everything else. So I've gotten that in place. I'm just, like you said, you're at that deadline of getting everything launched, if that makes sense. So I can help out whatever you need help out with. If we can tag team to help each other out, because I'm working now with after when we talked about the vibe coding, I went in and I prompted. So I got that with my mapped out system based off of my whole operating system. So I'm gonna do what he Jeff said and follow along and put that in Claude to help me with NA. But I had to take a mental break to try to come back.
And then also, if you're having issues again, Maisha, if you show up to Monday's call, I'm starved for people to be bringing in their problems and for me to try to fumble around and solve them one way or another. But yeah, if anybody, again, like if you want to bring in, and again, like we might not have that instant, silver bullet solution for you, but at least it's worth a try. And for sure, with some of them, we can solve them. Okay, we have very limited time. However, I think all of these, this is really what the coaching calls are about, is coaching, right? But I did want to spend a little bit of time on N8N. And, we have a workflow that we had done last time, and I'm going to dip into that. But since we have enough new people, and I have been talking about doing prompt to workflow, I want to go over that. And so we'll start the workflow from scratch, and then I'll go back to the old one that I had before, just so that everyone can see what we're doing. So I will share screen, boom. And then, so essentially, create workflow. So again, we're gonna start from scratch and I'm gonna go backwards. You use this build with AI tool right here. So, and again, if you don't have this, if you go to your N8N, now one, you might be on a free account. I don't know if they give this to you for free, probably not, right? This is the reason why they'll make you pay. But then if you are paying and you're like, oh, I still don't have that, what you need to do is I think you have to go to your admin panel. Hopefully this is right. I'm not going to do this now, but in your dashboard, you go to manage, and then right here, what N8N version are you on? And they update this thing all the time. I am not going to update mine right now, just because we have limited time. It's going to take like 5-ish minutes to update. But I could choose latest stable. And again, I'm at 1.19 and that has it. 1.20, I don't really need to do this, but this will have it. And then you go to save changes, and then you'll see everything will be unusable for a little bit. But this is what you need to do to make sure you're on the right version. And then, I need to still have an ADAC here. Sorry, oh, that guy. All right, that's an old one. So let's go to create workflow. Boom, we're here. So you want to build with AI. And now you want to put a prompt in here. And again, you get 50 of these a month, which is pretty good. We were burning through these initially, but then I realized a better way to sort of do some of this stuff. And so I'm going to burn one right now. But, when it comes time to making a prompt, so you get 1,000 characters. So just FYI, you don't want to write this whole prompt yourself. You want it to be well formatted and make a lot of sense. You want to go and you want to have an LLM write your prompts for you. If you want a really good prompt, I essentially always have an LLM do it. So you see, essentially, and we're going to go over this one. I would like a prompt. Don't try to create the workflow. Like these things love to start coding on you. You let it know, hey, I don't want you to code. For N8N's prompt to workflow feature must be less than 1,000 characters. If you don't tell it that, it'll make you a prompt that's too long, and you're gonna have to cut off the bottom of it, which is not what you want. Then you want to describe it. The workflow will read a concept from a Google Sheet and then generate a script using OpenAI API. It has SSML tagging. I love SSML. If you've been on our recent calls, I talk about it all the time. Essentially, this is a meta tagging language that adds more natural speech patterns to text to voice. So if you use this SML tagging, you're on our Tuesday call. I've been demonstrating that with vibe coding, how to put together a voice agent that uses SSML tagging that will then go to 11 Labs to generate a voice audio. There'll be a portion we focus on that'll be the portion we focus on at first, and we will get that working. And then add another step with the 11 Labs generated voices used by HeyGen for avatar generation. So the final product of this is to make a HeyGen avatar, right? But for a lot of my workflows, I like to break it up into steps. So if you look at how I do video generation, I go text, image to video. The same thing with this. I will go text to voice to video, right? And that just gives you more instances of where you can check things, make sure that they make sense. And I think that you get a better quality a lot of the times when you are taking those intermediate steps. And so that generated me this workflow. And then I read through it, made basic sense. Like it did say manual trigger or schedule trigger. I wanted a manual trigger and not the schedule. And then it gave me this. So boom. So what I'll do is I'll grab that, put this in here. and then just to demonstrate to everybody how it goes, and then we'll hop back over to the one we were working on before, just because, and we'll see. And when I did this before, what it did was, and we'll see if it happens here, it had this configure node to begin with, and the configuring node had things like how to read the different entries in the Google Sheet, and then the 11 Labs API key, and I think my 11 Labs voice. And it was messy and just confusing because I didn't put together that configure node, and we tried to troubleshoot it for a bit. Then after a while, it was just like, dude, this is not worth it. Like this configuring node. And I think a configure node can be useful in that you can, so look, did the same thing again, right? So initially it's creating this workflow configuration. And that's not the worst thing. And it is better practices to do something like that. It's kind of similar to creating an env file in vibe coding, but the env file in vibe coding is a lot more straightforward. And this thing had all of these different issues with its configuration. And I was just like, I'm sort of out on this whole situation. I'll let this finish putting it together. I'll save it just so it's saved and we could possibly go back to it. But then I'm going to kick back to the version. You'll see where, and I'll show you that adjustment that I made, where we got rid of that configuration node. Again, I do think that can be a good idea. I do think that potentially what you would maybe want to do is get it to work everything first, and then potentially tell it to generate this configuration node. And so, and then the good thing about this is that it does all of this, and then it does have all of these different things in here as things for you to check off. The other thing that is a little bit annoying about this, and I guess it's not as big of a deal, because I guess I think maybe it is, like when you do these configuration nodes, they're not necessarily using your credentials that you would have automatically set up in here. And so that's a little bit annoying, so then you have to set them up in here. But it does, so if you see this here, it's already connected to my OpenAI account when it builds this node, which is pretty cool. Like before, when I would ask an LLM to generate a JSON file, so if you can always, let's see, you can always download this file or import this file. And this is a JSON file, essentially. And when you do that, a lot of times, these credentials aren't in here. But when it generates them, your credentials are already in here. And then you can just go through this checklist of stuff and get this all handled. And if you click on one of them, it sort of takes you there and it has you do stuff. And really, and maybe this one's better than before, but sheet name, let's see, and document ID. So the first one that it did last week had a real issue with document ID and sheet name. This is not as bad. And maybe we could go forward with it. But again, essentially, if you click on this, it'll show you the different things you need to do. And then as you do them, it will check them off. And then if you're having issues, don't go and use build again. It's not really necessary. You also, if you could toggle over here and you have ask, and now you can ask questions if you're having a problem. So if this has an error with it, you can ask the questions and you can see what happens. Well, let's go back to, so that's building things with the AI build function. And again, you need to have a paid version. You need to update to your newest version. And as I said, there are some things I would have to fill out. Last time when we did this, it was kind of sketchy with how it handled this node here, but we did get that to work. Let's see. So we're going back to the one from last week. So you can see this is a little bit simpler. And part of this is also I am breaking up the pieces on this. So first, I had this, and we can do that now, where, and again, like this is just reading the concepts from a sheet. And so then this is my document ID, and then sheet one. This sheet is somewhere. We don't really need to check this out right now, but your sheet ID, just in case you're wondering, here, let me pull one up, hopefully. Yeah, here we go. Right. So, oh yeah, and then my idea for this was fairly meta. where I wanted it to generate a script about generating AI avatars with 11 Labs and HeyGen. So having a script that's generated, that's, you know, an 11 Labs and HeyGen avatar that is explaining how to create AI avatars with 11 Labs and HeyGen. So then this is my concept. As I was telling people, I only put one concept in here. Typically when I'm trying to test these out, I will do one or two. In the initial tests, especially when we were doing video generation, if you put 10 concepts in here and it's not working and it's generating 10 videos every time, you are going to start burning through your credits or your dollars or whatever, you know, monetary denomination that you're using. So try to do a very small number at first just to make sure that it works. And then your ID is this guy right here. So if you look, this number is very similar with this one, or not number, but this ID. And so then, and again, like, even though it'll generate this whole pipeline for you, I tend to test things pieces at a time, right? And so let's see how the script generation goes. And this should work unless the goblins got me. You know, the goblins are out there. Watch out for the Git goblins. They're powerful.
The little foxes. The little foxes. They destroy the vineyards.
The digital vineyards are just laid to waste with digital foxes. Okay, so then and then this created a script for me. And as you can see, so this is supposed to be 3 minutes long. It's approximately 400 to 500 words. I think when we were doing this before, I think you could check the recording. Like, it initially didn't give it any prompt, and I had to like just copy and paste this prompt from I think from my guy here. Yeah. I just took that and put it in there. And then if it's not doing exactly what I want, I would suggest take this piece, throw that back into the LLM and be like, hey, I don't like this prompt and this is why. And it'll give you something new. I'm also using GPT-4o Mini. This is another thing to do to save yourself. If you're not doing something highly complex, this isn't that complex, I do suggest using Mini instead of like the regular, just like full-on version. I think the costs is like completely different, where you can like, it's cost like pennies. Another one will cost, I mean, dollars over time. But like, I think this is like 1/10 or 1/100th the cost. So these smaller models are just a lot less expensive to use. And so boom, we have our script, which is great. And again, like, checking and verifying these things in pieces. I'm not really verifying, I'm not really looking over the script, but like, if you are doing it, you should, right? Take a look, make sure the script makes sense. But the one thing you can see in here is you'll see this stuff here break here, right? That's that SSML right there, right? That's all this like tagging and stuff that you see in here. This is trying to make it so that it has a more natural flowing pattern. And then, now we'll see here, the last time we did this, we ran into some problems. So when I was running it, it would tell me that I was trying to scam 11 Labs, which I was not. I was on their free version and they didn't like that. I did pay for a subscription. So this should work, but we'll see. This is also another place for the goblins and the foxes to get us. And it's generating again. And then also potentially, you know, if you got, say you really want it to be on 4.0, but not 4.0 mini. And you just want, but you want to just test out the system to see how well it was working. You might switch to 4.0 mini while you're doing your testing. And then once you validated everything, switch back over to 4. This is again, like, if you have been, all of the different testing can start to add up. And it's probably, you know, like in the grand scheme of things, for a lot of us, it's like, oh, I spent $50 on it. It's not that big of a deal. But it's like, that's still $50. Like, if you could reduce that down to $1, maybe, I prefer not to spend $50. Oh, woo-hoo-hoo. Oh, okay. Well, the save audio part, we'll see. But, okay, what do we got here? Definitely hear him breathing in. You know, that AI definitely likes to take a little breath. But, okay, we have made progress, right? And this,
we didn't hear it. I don't know if you know.
Okay, yeah, so it did sound good. It sounded wonderful. Let me see if I can figure out. Here, I'll download it. And then I wonder if I can just upload this into, let me add stuff. No, Here, let me do it real quick. We'll see if this is even useful at all. Yep, that's what it is. Okay. And then here, if you wanted to check it out really quick, that was the audio that we just created in this. And so, boom, we're good. Next time, we'll see, like, I don't even really need to save this audio file. I just need that audio file. And if I can take that, our next step is we're going to adapt this and add the HeyGen node in here. Hopefully we can get to that on next Thursdays. But then, boom, we've got our script is generated. We've got our 11 Labs voice. There is something weird at the beginning. I can't catch it every time, but like he says something first before hey there. And maybe that's something that needs to be edited out. But thank you, everyone. That was our coaching call for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to do a presentation on AEO. And essentially, AEO is the new SEO. So before we hit search engine optimization, now this is AI engine optimization. How do you get your website to show up in ChatGPT or in Claude? Things like that. Thank you, everyone. I will see you tomorrow. Have a great rest of your day. Hopefully